The upcoming Michael Jackson movie represents more than just another addition to the growing list of musical biopics, as for me it's a cultural event in the making. The combination of high artistic ambition, emotional storytelling, historical importance, while also carving out its own legacy. If it succeeds in capturing the spirit of Michael Jackson, the performer, the innovator, and the man behind that, I think it could remind the world why he remains one of the most captivating and complicated figures in modern history. More than just a movie, Michael has the chance to become a cinematic celebration of creativity, humanity, and the enduring power of music. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing all the reasons why I believe that the Michael Jackson movie can be a game changer for musical biopics. Before I get into it though, if you want to keep up to date on any of my future content on the Michael movie, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into the potential of the 2026 film based on the life of Michael Jackson. Over a decade ago, I was at university doing a screenwriting course, and in the middle of many original projects that I wrote, I would often think about what a Michael Jackson film would look like. It sounds quite strange, but at that time I thought if I ever had the chance to become a big filmmaker and I wanted to make a biopic film with plentiful resources, it would be a Michael Jackson film. At the same time, I never thought that this movie could be made nor told in the right way. However, after many years later, after all the talk about it, after the production issues surrounding the end of the film requiring changes, and after the talk of it being split into 2 parts with a 3.5 hour running time, it is finally here. For me, the upcoming 2026 Michael biopic has every ingredient to become the definitive musical biopic of our time. Michael Jackson is arguably the most iconic entertainer in modern music history, and his story has everything that a great film needs: extraordinary talent, innovation, fame, controversy, and tragedy. From his beginnings as a child star in the Jackson 5 to his evolution into the King of Pop, Jackson's journey was as cinematic as it was groundbreaking. So far with the first trailer, the film promises to capture that full arc, giving audiences an intimate yet sweeping portrait of a life that shaped global pop culture. Behind the camera, the project also has serious creative firepower. Director Antoine Fuqua, known for his bold visual style, teams up with screenwriter John Logan, whose credits include Gladiator and The Aviator. And producer Graham King, who delivered the Oscar-winning Bohemian Rhapsody, brings proven experience in turning musical legends into compelling screen narratives. Add in reports of a behemoth runtime, a massive budget, and even controversy in bringing it to the screen, it's clear that this film is designed to be an event, not just another entry in the wave of musical biopics. What makes Michael especially promising is its potential to go beyond a simple greatest hits retelling. Michael Jackson's life naturally lends itself to grand spectacle with its dazzling choreography, groundbreaking music videos, and record-breaking tours. But it also carries deep emotional and psychological weight. The film could explore the contrast between the dazzling public persona and the private man behind it, giving audiences a story that's not only visually spectacular, but also deeply human. Touching on this point, I obviously have to mention the varying viewpoints towards Michael. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I personally believe that Michael was vilified by the media. No one is perfect, and Michael Jackson definitely wasn't, but I do think that he was on a level of fame that was so insane that his name alone became a huge talking point. And a lot of that talking was just criticism from many different directions because of how he was and how he looked. Stories about him in the media were factually manipulated, like the issues he had with a skin disorder being presented as him trying to actively change his skin colour. Tabloids would call him Wacko Jacko and label everything he did as complete madness. Yet Michael himself was very private, and in not being able to have a normal life nor even a childhood, he could barely leave his own house. There are plenty of documentaries, archives, and videos discussing more than just these points, and they are better than me explaining this, but that's just a summarised idea of what he dealt with. Michael didn't act or look like everyone else, and his childhood heavily affected all of this, altering the trajectory of his entire life and public perception. But regardless of what I personally think about Michael, I'm not blind to the fact that there are people who believe many different things about him. And with all that in mind, imagine now that you're a filmmaker who is looking to make a biopic about him. How do you traverse those complexities, and how do you capture him and his story in the most respectful way possible? Well, I think the job the filmmaker and his crew seem to be doing is the absolute best way you can do it, and that is to simply make it from the perspective of those who knew him. There are so many exterior outlooks on Jackson already out there, whether they are just taking on the mainstream approach to his life or ones that are just outright damning. But this take on Michael is the first to be supported by the Jackson estate themselves, and is a true collaboration between those close to him, major studio creatives, and a filmmaker with prominence. A primary point to show this is casting Jackson's nephew, Jaafar Jackson, in the lead role. It adds another layer of authenticity and emotional connection to the whole thing. He's not just an actor stepping into Michael Jackson's shoes, he is family. Jaafar is Michael's nephew, and he grew up surrounded by the same music, the same legacy, and the same energy that shaped Michael himself. You can actually see it in his movements, his expressions, even the way he carries himself in the footage. It's like he naturally channels Michael. Casting Michael's real-life nephew as the king of pop is also a bold move that could influence future casting decisions in biopic films. It's a blending of reality and performance that adds emotional authenticity, something that audiences crave in a world of overproduced spectacle. The use of a family member to embody such a legendary figure might open new doors for how Hollywood approaches representation, realism, and legacy. And instead of imitation, Michael could give us an embodiment, a performance rooted in genuine connection and respect, and one that could introduce in a new way in which true stories are told. So in a time when musical biopics are becoming increasingly popular, I think Michael stands apart for both its ambition and its subject matter. Culturally, Michael carries enormous weight, and few figures in modern history have had the kind of global impact that he had. His music broke racial barriers, redefined pop performance, and influenced generations of artists across genres. Yet his life was also surrounded by controversy and scrutiny, and how the film handles those parts of his story will determine much of its legacy. If done with the sensitivity and courage that I expect, I think Michael can become more than just a tribute. It could be the deepest reflection of fame in a biopic yet, and how genius is celebrated, misunderstood, and ultimately human. The film could spark meaningful conversations about art, identity, and the cost of greatness in a world that often consumes its icons. Of course, the film faces huge challenges, but if it manages that balance, it could set a new standard for how the lives of cultural icons are told on screen. When the first trailer dropped for Michael, you immediately sense how high the stakes are. It opens quietly, almost reverently in a studio scene. There's this level of tension as a young Michael Jackson steps into the booth under the gaze of the legendary producer Quincy Jones. From that moment on, the trailer builds, and what follows is a crystallized journey of triumph, spectacle, and myth. The soundtrack cues alone, with the early chords of Wanna Be Starting Something, the familiar pulse of Billie Jean and Beat It, don't just bring nostalgia, but work as a narrative shorthand for what's to come. We get everything from his studio work, packed arena aerials, Michael walking in his leather jacket, flashes of his youth and family life, and glimpses of the film tackling his many controversies and personal problems. The quick shot of him looking at himself in the mirror, the shot of the firework on stage, and the shot of him around that table with his attorney suggest more than just the celebratory moments in his life. It suggests a deeper interrogation of a star's life and what it truly does to them. That, coupled with a celebration of his art and music, makes this so incredibly exciting to me, and I think a lot of others feel the same way. The public reaction to this trailer has been immense, record-breaking even, with it hitting over 100 million views within 24 hours. The trailer succeeds in positioning this film as a grand cinematic event, sweeping in scale, emotionally charged, and filled with moments that fans will recognise and longtime admirers will relish. It evokes the brilliance of the music, the spectacle of the performance, and the magnetic persona behind it. So I'm hopeful that the film will dig a bit deeper, being more than just a tribute concert for the screen. If the full film delivers on the emotional honesty that this trailer hints at, weaving in the shadows as well as the starlight, then the full trailer and subsequent marketing could handle more of that balance between celebration and confrontation. But yeah, this opening teaser trailer is one of the best teasers I've seen for a film in recent years, and I think it was edited to perfection. As I also touched on before, the filmmaking and production behind Michael has the potential to reshape the future of music-based cinema and perhaps even biographical storytelling as a whole. What makes this project different isn't just its subject, but the scale and ambition behind how that story is being told. The film brings together an unusually high-caliber creative team for a biopic, and the production combines blockbuster scope with intimate storytelling. This fusion of artistry and spectacle could set a new standard for how filmmakers approach real-life icons, proving that biopics don't have to be small, nostalgic portraits, that they can be full-scale cinematic experiences that rival major franchises in vision and reach. Technologically and creatively, Michael is being shaped as a next-generation musical film. Reports suggested massive sets, intricate choreography recreations, and a production scale closer to a blockbuster than a traditional biopic. The filmmakers have also embraced cutting-edge visual techniques to authentically recreate different eras of Jackson's career, from the Motown days of the Jackson 5 to the futuristic stylings of Thriller and Bad. This kind of period-spanning realism, aided by meticulous art direction and digital enhancement, could redefine how movies portray cultural icons across decades without losing the emotional truth. Even the casting choice of Jaafar adds to this point, blending familial connection with cinematic craft to create a portrayal that feels personal rather than imitative. What truly sets this film apart though is how it seems to be approaching legacy. Rather than just retelling events through the lens of tragedy or controversy, the production is reportedly striving to focus on a balance between the genius and the human. If the filmmakers can achieve that balance with honesty and depth, it could change how Hollywood approaches complex figures, encouraging more nuance and emotional courage in storytelling. Michael could become a model for how to handle mythic subjects, not as legends frozen in nostalgia, but as layered individuals who shaped and were shaped by their times. So in my opinion, the upcoming Michael biopic has the potential to change movies forever, not only because of who it's about, but because of how it's being made and what it represents for the future of cinematic storytelling around icons like this. At its core, Michael isn't just another music biopic, it's a reimagining of what a biographical film can be. Most musical biopics follow familiar patterns in a rise, a fall, and a redemption. But Michael is more complex than that and promises to go a bit further, exploring not just Jackson's fame, but the price of that fame, the art behind the music, and the emotional complexity of the man himself. By doing this on a grand visual and emotional scale, it can show that biographical films don't have to be restrained or conventional, that they can be as visually powerful, narratively rich, and emotionally sweeping as any other major blockbuster. The production reportedly spans multiple decades of Jackson's life, recreating his evolution through stunning set design, choreography, and cutting-edge technology. And beyond the filmmaking, Michael could have a cultural impact that stretches beyond cinema. It's arriving at a time when audiences are rediscovering the power of theatrical spectacle, when movies that combine emotional resonance with visual grandeur are reigniting people's desire to see stories on the big screen. If Michael succeeds, it could restore confidence in the theatrical experience and prove that stories about real people, when told with artistry, truth, and scale, can move audiences as much as any other film on this scale. In essence, I think Michael has the power to change the movie landscape because it bridges the gap between art and legacy, between the real and the cinematic. If Fuqua and his team manage to capture both the brilliance and the burden of Michael Jackson's life, the film won't just honour his story, as it will redefine how true stories are brought to life. It could set a new gold standard for biographical storytelling, proving that cinema still has the power to turn human experience into something timeless, transformative, and unforgettable. I haven't been this excited for a biopic since Oppenheimer, and I hope that in all of its art, its entertainment, and its commentary, that it can really show the impact of a figure like Michael Jackson. But that was my video discussing why I think the Michael Jackson movie can be a game changer for cinema and the musical biopic genre. It is a hell of a challenge to pull off, and it may very well not be pulled off, but I trust that the people involved can really capture Michael's legacy, both with his music and personal life, in the right way. Because of my excitement for the film, I'm going to be doing much more videos on it in the coming months, so look out for those and let me know down below in the comments section what your thoughts are towards the first teaser trailer. For much more videos and news on the Michael movie, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.